Hi, Jamie Allen Bishop with Soul Heart Entertainment here for Toes Day. Woo woo! Hey, I wanted to just quickly let you know that we're gonna start going live at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time from now on. So hopefully that doesn't mess anybody up. And I am going to try to figure out and get my team on making sure that all of the posts out there with 6 o'clock get taken down or changed or updated or whatever. So if you're looking for me at 6 o'clock, I am no longer going to be on at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It just ended up being challenging so for me and my family, and then I heard from a few friends overseas that they just weren't able to make it at that time. So 4 o'clock from now on, please join us for the live. You know I enjoy the interaction. But I can also talk for days and days and days about toes without any interaction, as you probably also know. Oh, goodness. Okay. So if you have just learned about toe reading and you're coming to this toe reading session out of curiosity, one of the things that I always do is go over the toe reading map and a couple other reference images. Okay, if you're wondering where those reference images are, they are on the Soul Heart Entertainment page on Facebook in the files folder. So you can always reference that location for anything that you're seeing me refer to, other than the show pictures, because you know those are mostly private client pictures. But guess what I found fairly recently? I found runnersworld.com, where people post all kinds of images of their feet after having run marathons and because of training and because of shoes, supposedly, right? So if you know anything about toe reading, everything means something. So if your shoes are rubbing you the wrong way, guess what? That means something too. It's not just the shoes. It's that you're choosing to wear shoes that rub you the wrong way. So where else in your life are you allowing things and people to rub you the wrong way and inviting that experience into your life? It's crazy, right? The metaphors, you know, we could relate everything to anything, but I've found that in toe reading, it's fairly accurate, my friends. So, hey, Cindy Rose, thank you for being here. Yay! Okay, so in the month of March, we're going to talk about the big picture or destiny toe, which is, of course, the big toe. So when we look down at our big toe, there are whole bunches of things that can be wonky about them. But the idea is that if you have a big toe, you probably have some pretty big experiences that you're expected to experience here on Earth. I giggle because I'm not exactly sure how to phrase that, and you know, it is what it is. So with big picture or destiny toes, we're talking about how we show up in the world, what's expected of us, what we think is expected of us, what people we love expect of us, and how that all kind of comes together on the feet, on the hologram of the body. So I always start out with the toe reading map, which is just a quick review. Our left foot is our yin foot, or our internal self foot, and apparently I think that, you know, if I do it that way, it might make more sense to y'all. The right foot is our yang foot, or our gang foot, which is our external self. The big toe is about our destiny. It's the ether toe. The second toe is the air toe, which is about communication and creativity. The third toe, which is akin to the middle finger toe, is the fire toe, which is about action or temperament. The water toe, which is our ring finger toe, is about relationships, or rather how we go with the flow. And then the earth toe is the only one that's different from side to side. The earth toe on the yin side, or the internal self side, is about faith and trust. And the earth toe on our yang side, or our external self side, is about prosperity and abundance. So as you can see, the past is written there and the future is written on both sides of the baby toe. So when our toes or toenails lean to one side or the other, so when our toenails lean to the big toe side, that's things that we're thinking that are from the past. And then when our toenails lean toward the baby toe side, or our actual toe leans toward the baby toe side, that means that our thoughts are in the future on that. The toes don't actually have to lean to reference either past thoughts or future thoughts. They can also have padding that's a little bit excessive on one side or the other if we were to vertically look at those toes. So like, for example, if I were to take this big toe in half, right up the middle of it, this padding on the past side is thicker and more pronounced than on the other side. So she's probably, when it comes to the big picture or what she imagines in her life, she's probably stuck a little bit in the past and how the past has affected that big picture experience for her in her life. So, and because that shows up there, it also shows up as there's a horizontal line kind of right across the toe. And I don't know if that's showing up for you guys very clearly, but it's very, very distinct, and it's very kind of a severe line. And you would think that everybody has that line, but not everybody has that line. So when I see that line, that tells me that there was a deep valley in the experience of the big picture in this person's life. And so in that deep valley, we have, of course, the opportunity to climb ourselves out of the deep valley and get back on track, or we have the potential to get lost in the darkness, so to speak. Deep valley, darkness, whatever, however you want to reference it. But so when I see those deep valleys, or they're horizontal lines is how they show up, that tells me that there's forgiveness work to do around whatever event, or maybe it was a multitude of events that occurred at that time that created that deep experience, or that dark experience, or that challenging experience. So when it comes to challenges in our life, there are, it's like layers of a I want to say onion, but I would prefer to reference the rose. So, where the inside of the rose is the sweet spot, so to speak, or when it's fully blossomed, it's open to receive all that is good. So it's in the darkness that bud is trying to break free from. So in order to break free, we have to do that forgiveness work. We have to do the layers and layers of forgiveness work, because what's interesting about forgiveness work is when we start doing forgiveness work for the first time, it can really move us and get us to this point of seeing things a little bit more clearly, having experiences that feel better and feel lighter around the entire experience, or all of the experiences that happen to create those deep valleys. But if we don't really delve super deep into where that came from and why it showed up in our existence and how this happened and why we were inviting it, or what we learned from it, or how, there's so many different layers to the experience itself. And in the forgiveness work, if we can peel back lots and lots of layers, inevitably there's more layers in there. So just know that even when you've done forgiveness work, if that line is still showing up, there's more forgiveness work to do. At least that's what toe reading tells me. You can take it for what it's worth. You can believe it or not. It means nothing to me, my friend. Or my friends, rather. Okay, so I reference these toes pretty regularly because they're really interesting toes in comparison. You know, when I say that not everybody has those lines across the toes, these are really great toes to show you that they're very long. So for all intents and purposes, we would think that those toes, you know, they're gonna bend more, right? They're gonna have more of an intense, like these are super long toes also, right? So this person has really long toes and this person has really long toes. In fact, they look sort of similar when at first glance. But when you look at them really closely, you can see that there are definite differences, okay? But yeah, this person doesn't have that forgiveness work to do, but they have other work to do. I mean, you know, honestly, if we're still human, we probably have more work to do. If we've gone on to experience a different circumstances, because let's just be honest, I believe very much in the soul. I believe the human experience is a vessel to experience this particular life on earth. So if you don't believe that, that's okay. You don't have to believe what I believe. But that's where I'm coming from when I say that, is when we leave this body and this experience and we move on to a different experience or a different body or a different, you know, who the heck knows what's out there? Lord knows, right? When that happens, we've served the purpose that we're potentially here to serve, okay? In the grand scheme of things, if you believe in multiple lives, or if you believe in reincarnation or that kind of thing, that's kind of what that means in relation to what I'm saying, is that if we don't fix it, or we haven't come to terms with it, or there isn't peace, complete and utter peace around something, we're probably gonna, and we, you know, let's say we choose to off ourselves, okay? That soul is gonna come back because they still have that lesson to learn, right? It hasn't, we can't just quit. So you might as well not go there with your thoughts, feelings, or emotions, because you're just bound to come back and experience the whole thing in a whole new set of circumstances with a whole new set of people in a whole new time frame. So yeah, I've talked myself out of this one once or twice. All right, so let's move on. When it comes to destiny and it comes to the big picture, I love these toes because this person has a complete, like, talk about big toes. These toes show up so big, especially when you're comparing them to the other toes, which are a little bit shorter in comparison. And then all of a sudden we have this huge, long, really big toe. I love that. I think that it's so fun, right? Okay, I'm going to read some of your comments, Cindy Rose, because all right, so peeling back the onion can still cause tears. Oh, so true. What a great saying. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And, you know, in the rose thing, being a bud, it's safe and it's tight and it's comfortable. I kind of feel like, you know, a swaddling of a baby, and then opening up to newness and new experiences and new realities. That's really scary. That can be very vulnerable feeling. It can be very, it can get terrifying to open up to new things or things that you're not sure what the outcome will be, right? So it is what it is. All right, next comment. Yes, life happens as we live it, and add the decades. I know, right? Forgiveness work can be as ongoing as your life requires. True story, #truth. Honestly, forgiveness work can go on for lifetimes. It doesn't, this life is probably not going to cut it when it comes to forgiveness work. I was at an experience. I think it was, I'm trying to remember what the title of the class was. It was a fairly small group of about 20 people, and in the experience, the teacher, the person who was teaching, it was actually two people who were teaching the class, but one person in particular was kind of going around to various and assorted people and, kind of looking for answers for one of the questions that she asked. And I don't even remember what it was, but I do remember this sense of inner peace within me. And I was sitting next to somebody who, for lack of a better way of expressing how he showed up in the world, it was like being next to the calmest calm ever. He was so peaceful and so grounded and so genuinely him. It was like being next to a god, if that makes sense. It was all powerful, and yet it was not all power. Like, it was so humble. It was really, really cool, you guys. It was a really neat experience. But so I'm sitting next to this person who has this really big, really powerful, but very peaceful energy. And I'm, kind of like, oh, hi. That's my hubby. He's joining us from 43,000 feet over New Mexico. Awesome. So cool. Safe travels, babe. Keep your eye on the, clouds or wherever you're supposed to keep them. Anyway, back to the story. So I'm sitting in class. I'm next to this very peaceful, very powerful man. And he leans over and says something to me, and I was so in awe of him, I couldn't even remember oh, hi Natasha, thanks for joining, yay. I couldn't remember what it was that he said, or I couldn't actually hear him because it was like I was so in awe of him, right? I couldn't really focus or concentrate. But he gave me the name of a guide of mine, and within seconds of him giving me the name of this guide, the professor came over and she looks at him and she goes, I hope this doesn't scare you, but this is your last human experience. Like, you're over this experience. I can just see it. It's so prominent in your being, and I'm honored to even be in your presence. And it was one of those moments where I was like, wait a minute, huh? I don't get it. I was too new at this whole spiritual thing to understand it, but I understand it so much better now. And that is that he was just at a place in his human experience where he was peace. He embodied this idea of peace. And not that he was, ready to move on from the human experience right here, right now, or tomorrow, or in any kind of dramatic way. He just so embodied peace. He didn't need the chaos and drama of the human experience, right? Because it's chaotic and dramatic and so much fun if we allow it to be fun, even when it doesn't feel good, right? It's kind of like change. When we go through change, it may not feel good, but oh my gosh, there's so much to experience there, right? There's so much goodness, even when that change is uncomfortable or dramatic or challenging or even when it feels daunting and overwhelming and anxiety ridden, right? But there's always something to it. We wouldn't be experiencing it if there wasn't something to it. And so earlier today, right, exactly, Natasha, seriously. Earlier today, I got on today's my 28th day of my 28-day Go Live challenge. So woo, finished. Yay. But in that little episode, I went on and on a little bit about just being authentically you and showing up for the other people who can totally relate to your experience, because part of the thing about doing that is that you're expressing that you're not the only one going through something. And boy, does it feel lonely when you're feeling in a state of panic over whatever emotion or physical ailment or challenge that we're going through. It can feel really hard. It can feel really hard to push through that and get through that. And isn't it nice to know when we have other people who have had that experience or who have had a similar experience? Nobody can ever know exactly what you went through, but boy, misery loves company in that respect, right? And so it's really, I think that's why the 12-step programs do work. When they do work, they work really, really well, and they have a like change for life, because it really gets to the root and the heart of going through something difficult, right? Okay, so I'm going on and on. Let's talk about toes. Okay, so on the right foot, we're talking about the destined path of the person's soul here on earth. On the left foot, we're talking about the destined path of the person internally, okay? So when the toes are different, and these two, you guys, I can see things that are different in these that you won't necessarily be able to see, but you can see there's a little bit more padding on the outside of the right foot, which is her external self foot, than there is on the left foot. That means that she's showing up inside herself, or internally. She is more comfortable with the idea of her destined path than she is as she experiences it here on earth, okay? So there might be a little bit of holding back. There might be a little bit too much focus on the past events that might be scaring her into making decisions or something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but she's coming pretty straightforward. There's a good solid space between her destiny and her communication toe, okay, on both feet. What that indicates is that this is somebody who needs extra time to process. So they may have these really big picture ideas, but they can't communicate what that is until they have kind of a plan of action in place. So they need to do that internal processing. They need to really focus on what that looks like and what the outcome is going to be for them before they can express it here on earth, okay? Or to their friends or family or whatever. So if you have somebody in your life who has a big toe that has this fairly large separation, just know that they're going to be somebody who's a little bit egocentric. They're going to be probably pretty focused on what their goal is to achieve in life, because they're here for big things, and they need to be. They need to not be worried about somebody else they need to not be concerned about other people. They need to be focused on who they are and why they're here and what big destiny they're here to fulfill. Okay, so that's what the space looks like. Okay, the thing about toes that I'm going to try to find toes that are nicely separated, and I think I saw some of my toes earlier that I came across, and I think this will show you what I mean by. So yeah, this is my toe. This is my right foot. And you can see there's just the slightest amount of space between almost all of them, except that baby toe gets a little bit close to that relationship toe. So on my feet, you can see that if you divided it in half, there's a lot more padding on that future side than there is on the past side. Do you see that? And what that means is that I was way too focused on the future in this particular photograph, which was, 7-8 years ago. And that bunion that shows up, even though it's a small one, that bunion that shows up means that I had past forgiveness work to do. Okay, So if anybody has a bunion that's starting to form or that has formed, that's about past forgiveness work of the responsibility that we either put on ourselves or we felt that somebody else put on us. Okay, so there's some releasing of that feeling, of that energy, of that it feels like a burden. Okay, anytime that I think of anything having to do with the shoulders and that burden of responsibility, I always think of Atlas carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. So that's the metaphor. That's the exact metaphor to use when it comes to the bunion, because you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders from the past. So if it shows up as a corn, which has nothing to do with our destiny necessarily, but it could, if it shows up as a corn, that means that we have the weight of the world on our shoulders now, or that we feel like the future is scary and concerning. Okay, so even though these toes show up fairly, open, fairly willing to receive information, I could dissect them for days. Not in a bad way, but in a way that helps me know where I need to work on, what's going on within me in order to be able to walk this path in the best way possible. So, I just thought of something. One of the things that I've never mentioned in any of these videos, and I've been doing these videos for quite a while now. I don't know how many I have, but I have a lot. Is that when toes are really stiff and they won't move very easily, that indicates somebody who's very stiff and won't move easily. They're not likely to go through change gently. They're going to need to be pushed into change. And that looks like when, let's say, we have really bad eating habits and we don't want to change those eating habits, but our health is going to end up being, our health is going to be affected by our eating habits. Our dis-ease will show up. So whether it's heart condition, whether it's, fibromyalgia, whether it's having plantar fasciitis, whether it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If our eating habits need to change, they will show up as dis-ease, because that's just how our body is magical. Our body communicates so clearly with us, you guys. If only we'd listen, right? Okay. So that was the corn on the other side, is that we have to release those future thoughts of the burden of responsibility. Okay. I can share one more thing. Is there anything you guys want to know about as far as the destiny or the destined path, or how that might show up? I can share with you these feet, which are what I was talking about these earlier. They're called spiritual suicide toes, and that's when the bunion shows up really painfully. Okay, and it juts off very severely from the path. Okay, so if we're on path, our toes will show up straight and even, and pretty much even straight across, and none of them will be bent, or they'll show up fairly straight. When we're off path, they show up very crooked and very challenged and very, okay. So the spiritual suicide toe is this one, where this person was expected not to follow her destiny. There was no way that the people that were around her, the people that were supporting her in her life, would allow her to have the life that she was destined for. Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is, let's say she was a farm girl and she really wanted to be a Hollywood actress. Like, that was her dream of all dreams. And she didn't have the cojones to leave her family and go to Hollywood and chance it, right? So what ends up happening is she ends up staying on the farm, working until she can't work anymore, because her feet will literally shift and change themselves away from her being able to stand, quite literally. Okay, so if you don't follow your destined path, your feet will mutate into something that makes you like probably rethink whether you should follow your destined path or not. I found these fabulous toes from runnersworld.com, and I just wanted to share them with you. Like this person had one of those bunion straightening surgeries, okay? In my class, the podiatrist in my first level 1, she only went through level 1 certification, but in that class, she said that the expectation of her being able to correct that spiritual suicide toe, okay? Now, hopefully, when you go to get surgery on that toe, it's not quite as far gone as the image of the feet that I showed you. Hopefully, it's just slightly off, not completely off track. But it can, they literally break it and straighten it, right? So that was a picture of somebody that they did that to. She said that there's only a 70% success rate on average across the board for those surgeries. She took this toe reading class, and she came back to the next level, to level 2, which she was not part of, but she showed up just to share with us what happened. A year later, her success rate went from 75, which was substantially higher than the national average, to 95% success rate, because she started coaching it gives me goosebumps. She started coaching all of her bunion surgery toe people on how to walk their destined path and forgive themselves for holding on to the burden of responsibility from their past, because it's only them who allowed themselves to be held back. And that's the thing about the forgiveness work that's the most challenging, is it's really easy to blame mom and dad or the family for, forcing or, getting pregnant too young or whatever. I mean, it doesn't even matter what your story is. It's easy to blame those circumstances and those things that are in place that held you back. And it's really hard to blame yourself for choosing to stay and not follow your dreams and make different decisions along the way, right? It's really hard to forgive ourselves for that. So that's where we need to start. Everything, all the healing, it all starts here. It all starts within, right? I know. Isn't it crazy, Natasha? It's just like, it's so accurate though. It's so accurate though. My friend had her feet start to change back very soon after surgery, and they do. That's very normal, because truly what needs to happen is this. And I'll show that image that you love so much, Cindy Rose, which is this image. It's the hologram of the body on the feet. If we don't change our minds, those toes are going to change right back to the mindset that we have. It's interesting, that word, mindset, right? Whew, it's a powerful word, and it is so true. It is so true. All right. Well, cool. This was a fabulous first day for the Destiny Toe. If you guys have any questions or comments about Destined Path or purpose or what to look for, please let me know in comments or private message me, and we can go from there. Oh, hey, we're doing our retreats this year, or this month on the 26th to the 28th, and they're in Sedona. So if you haven't heard about the retreats, definitely ask me. They're absolutely amazing. We have Jamie Clark, Maggie Clark, we have Michelle Claire, we have, who else? Wendy Lynn, we have Sherry Fromm, and we have yours truly, Jamie Bishop, presenting at these retreats. And they're going to be only 15 seats live, and there's going to be a few virtual seats. So if you're interested, definitely let me know. I would be honored to share more information with you. All right. Thank you for being here. Jamie Allen Bishop with Soul Heart Entertainment. Have a fabulous Tuesday.